to help share and think about how we can protect ourselves as well as any aging parents, grandparents, other adults that we may have in our lives so that they can continue to create those opportunities and prosper. As you can see, that is me. I have been with Carter Bank since 2019 in the learning industry as the director of training and development for the organization. Before we dive in, just to make sure that we are all on the same page, any opinions or views stated by me are the presenter's own and may not represent Carter Bank's views. This document is used to support of a live discussion, so I hope that you guys have lots of questions, engage in conversation because that's what makes it fun. As such, it does not necessarily express the entirety of that discussion nor the relative emphasis on topics therein. So just making sure that we're all on the same page. I did not create all this and make all this stuff up. And then an introduction. So there are multiple forms of ID theft and fraud, or as otherwise known as identity theft. Every day scammers are coming up with new and inventive ways to scam adults. And we desperately try to keep up with those ways and try to stay ahead of the scammers, but it does get a little bit complicated. So what we want to talk about today is what are some things that we can do to help mitigate it as much as possible. Unfortunately, we will not be able to cover every type of ID theft or fraud or scam, but we will touch on some of the more common ones and share information on ways that you can hopefully protect you and your loved ones and some tools in the event that you are become part of an identity theft, a fraud, or a scam. Objectives for today is we want to recognize and reduce the risk of elder financial exploitation. I do want to stop here for a minute and just point out, just because we talk about the aging adult or this is for elder financial exploitation, these scams can happen to anybody at any age. So things that we talk about today not only will help our aging population, but also anybody that's of the younger generations as well. How do you guard against identity theft? What can you do to protect yourself? Plan for possible loss of their ability to manage their finances. You know, whether they are going into a retirement home or whether they're going overseas to support our country. What if they cannot manage their finances, and what do we need to do to help support that? Find other helpful resources for managing their money and reporting financial exploitation. So as we go through this presentation today, we will provide you some ideas of ways to help mitigate these risks, but we will also provide you with some numbers and some websites that you can also go to that if you feel that you're a victim of fraud or identity theft, what you can do to help resolve those issues that you may have encountered and fix anything that may have happened. Before I move forward, are there any questions?
I have a question, Cheryl.
Sure.
As far as Carter Bank, if somebody were to get, have identity theft, does Carter Bank require like a police report, or is there like steps for Carter Bank specifically?
There are steps specifically for Carter Bank, and one of them would be a police report. But
Okay.
if you feel that you are a victim of identity theft, I would definitely go to your financial institution and understand what their protocol and their procedure is, because it could be different for
Okay.
different institutions. Great question. So our agenda, we will talk about financial exploitation, which includes fiduciary account, such as POAs, power of attorneys, also investments, caregivers and lottery scams, social engineering, which impacts grandparents, taxes, telemarketing, and a romance scam, and then consumer and home services such as telephone, contractors. We always need our houses repaired. We were talking about down trees. How do you make sure that the person that's coming to cut down your trees is a legitimate business and is a legitimate company? Identity, and then reverse mortgage, which as we start to age and we start to have more equity in our home, a lot of us hear a lot about the reverse mortgage and how do you make sure that that is something best for you in order to protect your finances and your assets. So to get started, we're going to start with a poll because I want to hear from you guys. As you can see here, Kelly has put up a poll. Do you carry only the identification checks, credit cards, or debit cards that you really need? Or do you carry a bunch of them, whether you need them or not? If you will enter your answer in the poll, we will see what people are saying.
And while we're in the polling, if any questions come about, I meant to say it when we started the presentation today. Anybody can drop questions in the chat at any time. I'll be checking. So if anything comes to mind, just let us know, and then I'll present that question over to Cheryl.
Thank you, Kelly. Okay, so
Mhm.
let's look at our results from the poll. So we have two of the three said they always carry only the identification checks and credit cards or debit cards that they really need. And then it looks like two individuals said that they sometimes, now three, our poll's right, that's awesome. That's awesome. But sometimes we carry more than we need. And that's probably common for most individuals because they just put all their stuff in their wallets or their purses and take it with them. But one of the things that we do want to look at, and one of the things that we will talk about as we go through today, one of the ways to protect ourselves is to only carry what you need, because it's easy for scammers today and those that know how to are very savvy. I'm sure you've seen those commercials or those news stories where someone will just walk right by you and they have some mechanism that can take all your information electronically from your wallet or your purse and you don't even know it. So minimizing what you carry with you when you go places is probably the best way to prevent everything getting taken and whatnot, because I know you've seen, for example, if I have all my credit cards with me, I become identity theft or victim of identity theft or fraud, and I have to go cancel all my credit cards. I may need at least one credit card that I can continue to do business with, go to the grocery store, get gas. So it is recommended that you only really carry what you need when you go places, and that may change up based on where you're going. Thank you guys for participating. Huh. And then you guys can see the results there. All right. So what is elder financial exploitation and who is at risk? Does anybody have an idea of how they would define what is elder financial exploitation? Please feel free to put that in the chat if you have any thoughts or ideas. Well, let's talk about it. So fraudulent, what is financial exploitation? It is defined as a fraudulent or otherwise illegal, unauthorized, or improper act or process of an individual that uses the resources of an older person or personal benefit, profit, or gain. So what that means is pretty much if you are using the assets or the financial means or things like that of an elder or an aging person or really any individual, or you are taking advantage of someone by giving them false information for goods or services sold and whatnot, that is considered financial exploitation. So if you know, for example, of that would be maybe if someone does cut down a tree and they know that this individual has a lot of money and they charge them $1,000 to cut down a tree because they know that person has it, as opposed to their standard rate of $200, that would be considered an example of financial exploitation. Also, it's actions that result in depriving an older person of rightful access to or use of benefits, resources, belongings, or assets. So an example of that would be if someone takes over someone's checking account, savings account, safe deposit box, and doesn't ever allow that individual to see what activity is going along in those different accounts, and they aren't able to understand how their resources are being used, those are actions that can be defined as financial exploitation. And keep in mind, anybody can be a victim of financial exploitation. Today, we are talking about it from the aging population or elder financial exploitation. And it goes across all social, educational, and economic boundaries. Anybody can become a victim at any age. What we do find, though, is because of the aging population, they aren't as savvy with what's going on today as far as new electronics and all those types of online opportunities. And so they need a little help. So they tend to be more of the victims than an 18, 19, 25-year-old because they are a lot more savvy on how to manage their monies and their finances online.
Now, I want to add something too. So Quick story. Just before I got onto the webinar, I was just speaking to my aunt who lives in New York and she lives alone. And she just shared with me that her entire account was compromised. And there is a frustration of one, you talk about not being savvy enough to take care of this. She's not as tech savvy, so she had to solicit the help of her daughter who lives in Texas in order to be on the phone and help her navigate some of these changes. So she had to change her account and all those different things. And then the other thing that comes with it is the inconvenience, as an inconvenience, is having to call all of the persons. If you have automatic drafts coming out of your account, you have to reach out to all of the companies that you do business with in order to reset items. And then she was hit with overdraft charges because that the companies come for their automatic draft, the money is not there, and so on and so forth. So it could have a cascading effect if we're not vigilant of how we are of our finances and not paying attention to our statements, etc. And I know you're going to cover that, but I just wanted to put that story out there.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kim. And if anybody else has any stories they'd like to share, please feel free to put it in the chat. Just speak up because we love to hear how this has impacted you and how you've resolved it in your day-to-day basis. Also understanding that when we talk about the elder financial exploitation, why are these individuals more targeted? We talked a little bit about that, but one of the reasons is because they do have regular income, and most of the time they have accumulated assets that are a lot more vulnerable than the younger generations. They're very trusting and polite. So they trust if you tell them that's so, then they're going to believe that it's so. They could be lonely and have social isolation. And the reason that we talk about that, because there are scams that we'll talk about today. An example of them is the romance scam, that people will prey on those individuals that may have lost a loved one living by themselves and are just looking for that companionship. They may be vulnerable due to grief, like we just said, from the loss of a spouse, be reluctant to report exploitation. So if a family member is taking advantage of them from a financial perspective and whatnot, they may not want to turn that family member in because it is a family member. So they just kind of let it go. And then they don't like to, at some point, they don't like to believe that they're not independent anymore and that they need help. We're such a generation of independent individuals. We hate to say, I can't do this anymore and I need help. So they may be a little bit gun shy of asking for that help and that support.
Yeah, Cheryl. I said frustration and aggravation that an individual goes through when this happens, because, like you said, so many of those things have to, especially if somebody is on Social Security, receiving that Social Security check, and all of a sudden they have to open up a new checking account if it was an ACH, set up account, those kind of things. Kristen said that her father was scammed with fear tactics. Kristen, do you mind telling what kind of scam it was? Like if it was the IRS scam, sometime utility, I'm not sure. If you just mind sharing, if you know what specific scam they, used to create that fear. She said they sent him a free item, then said he owed for it.
Yes. And that's very common, Kristen. That's a great example because they're not quite sure how to respond to that. And they want to stay out of trouble, right? And so they just figure they've got to do whatever's asked. And they may think, oh, maybe I did order that free item.
And
And
she
she said,
said, I'm sorry, Cheryl. And she said that they scared him into sending the gift cards, and then threatened that they would call the law on him if he didn't send those gift cards.
yeah.
Hmm.
And that is very common, Kristen. I hate that happened to someone that you know. And unfortunately, as we get older, they prey on those insecurities and they know that they're going to probably do what is ever asked, and they're not going to question it because they don't want to get in trouble. They don't want to look like they can't handle things on their own any longer. And along those lines, it's actually kind of comical, not comical, I guess, but I have a 26-year-old and a 21-year-old, and they're getting emails, phone calls, text messages saying, you owe me this. We're going to call the law if you don't pay this bill, and they'll send it to me or their dad and say, "Hey, is this legit?" And we'll like, no, just delete it. Don't click on any links, just delete it. But even our younger generations, they're starting to target them, and they get nervous about saying no and ignoring those type emails, text messages, and things like that. So in that case, my recommendation would be, have those conversations with your loved ones, with people that you may be caregivers for, and just let them know if you are not sure before you do anything, please don't hesitate to reach out to me and let me research it and figure out if it's legit or not before you send them any kind of money or provide them any kind of information.
Sheryl, unfortunately, Kristen said that it got so bad that in the end they scammed him out of $60,000 before the family found out.
Oh, I hate that. I am so sorry, Kristen. I hope that is a great lesson learned for all of us. Build those relationships with the ones that you love and that you're caring for, and make sure they understand it's okay not to be concerned, not to know, but please come to you guys first before they do anything like that. Were they able to get any of their money back?
I think that what you said, Sheryl, is so important because it's like, you know, just be as a hey, you're getting a little bit older, mom, dad, aunt, uncle, whoever, if you have anybody, because and just use it as a them situation, because there's so much scam out. If you ever are in a situation, would you please check with one of us just to double check? You know what I mean? Like a backup system to be, hey, I think that everybody should be telling that to every loved one that they have. So very good point. Thank you. So let's see what she said. She said the bad thing was we talked about this all the time, but he said when he was in it, he just couldn't think. And no money was ever recovered.
I hate that. And that is a very common, it happens so fast they don't think. They just kind of panic and they're just trying to solve it on their own. So hopefully some of this information that we share today will help others not get into that same situation and hopefully mitigate the risk that they won't get into it again, which I'm sure after $60,000 loss, they've learned their lesson. On to the next slide. Thank you so much for that information, Kristen. Greatly appreciate it. So we talked a little bit about why are older adults at risk. Type a response in your chat if you have any other thoughts or ideas of why an older adult might be at risk other than what we talked about.
I think it's just like you said, there's such isolation. You don't have anybody to bounce it off of in the midst of when it's happening. Hey, does this sound right to you? Does this make sense? So I feel like, um, Kristen had said that her mom passed away and that, her mom was so savvy about, being really careful and cautious about those scams. And, but then it was just her dad by himself.
Right. Absolutely. And that's on this slide. These are things that we've talked about, just a reiteration of why our older adults are more at risk or aging adults. And that's a great point, Kelly. I have a next door neighbor. His wife passed away 2 years ago. He's 86. Well, so the neighborhood's kind of taken him on, but he's told me multiple times that his wife did all the finances. He never looked at the checkbook. He pretty much just handed over his checks to her, and she did all the finances, answered all the emails, managed the household. So when she passed away, he's having to learn how to do that. And scammers are pretty savvy and smart that they may realize, oh, well, this individual used to do all the finances, and now there's this new individual. I might can target that individual. So he's always reaching out to me or another neighbor asking, what do I do about this? What is this? How do I do this? Because we've had those conversations. Don't click on any links and don't respond to any emails that you're not 100% sure what they're about. So that was probably very common in those households that the mom or the female is usually the more one that takes care of all the household finances, and then the one left behind doesn't know
Mm-hmm.
what they paid
That's
in the past and things like that.
That's so common. That's so right, Cheryl. People are watching. One of the things that I want to reiterate as we go through the material, people are always watching. And so it is up to the neighborhood. Yes, I love that neighborhood watch. But the scammers are paying close attention, even if you're not.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So on the next slide, we have another poll for you guys to say, to think about, what do you think? How important is it to review financial statements, bills monthly, and identify and or correct any errors? Kelly, do we have our poll
Well,
result?
hold on.
Okay.
Okay. I'm trying to, so it's there, but the first one said launch, and I see it there. Is everybody able to click on, because it's there, it's up.
And that's okay. Let's just talk about that for a few minutes. And if you guys have
Okay.
the response in the chat, that would be great. How important is it for us to review our financial statements, our bills monthly, and quickly identify and correct those errors? How important do you think that is?
I said always. Kim says always. Anybody else?
Absolutely. Anybody else have a thought? Do you actually do this on a monthly basis, weekly?
It said, Kristen said, we have clients here that sign up for services that they don't even realize they are and then get caught up on the monthly charges. So looking at your statements is important. Amen.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is very important. And we have gotten into the habit as a society that we don't look at our statements as we should because everything is online. So if you do all your banking online, which is absolutely great, and it's one of those avenues to help protect your identity and whatnot. But you find yourself, you're just like, oh, look, the balance is still there. You kind of look at it over, but you don't look at the detail of what is coming in, what is going out. And you may miss things such as, that you have signed up for this service and you may have done a free trial and now your trial's up. And so now they're charging you $39.99 a month and you don't even realize it. So it's very important because some of these things that you sign up for free trials could be scams, right? A lot of things that we see today online, you can be on these social media outlets and go buy this, go sign up for this, go sign up for this free printable exercise program, and they're going to charge you and you don't realize it. So it's very important that you quickly review your financial statements, your monthly bills, and then you do identify and correct them. You can go through the company that did the correct, that made the error. If you have to go through the credit bureaus to make sure things are corrected, the sooner you get those taken care of, the better it is for you and your loved ones, that they don't linger very long at all. So we do need to review those. So let's look at some examples of financial exploitations. For the next little bit, there's several things that we're going to touch on a little bit. And like I said earlier, there's so many different scams out there that we just can't touch on them in depth, but we will touch on them a little bit, talk about how can you mitigate some of those risks? What can we do to ensure that they don't happen? And working with your loved ones or anybody that you may be caring for, or even for yourself. So the first step that we are going to look at is exploitation by an agent under a POA or a person under another fiduciary relationship. So what does this mean? So a POA is a power of attorney. A lot of times as we work with aging adults, they have someone that is their power of attorney that makes sure that their finances are taken care of, that they're allowed to pay their bills, that they're allowed to go in their safe deposit box. And this is very important that we are very careful with this when we are selecting who is that power of attorney for our aging adult. Even for ourselves, do you trust that person? Is that person someone that you know can manage their own money properly? You never want to allow someone to manage your money and your finances that can't even manage their own money very well. So it's very important that when you are thinking about who is helping take care of your finances, are they the right person for that responsibility? And remember, when you create a power of attorney, if it's for the financial institution or even other entities, you can designate what that person is actually allowed to do. I would be very careful setting up a power of attorney for a loved one where you give them carte blanche and they can do whatever they want. Because if that happens, then that individual could go in and get a loan, get a credit card, open checking accounts, open savings accounts, and things like that. So it's very important that when you are setting up that power of attorney with your aging loved one, that you make sure y'all have that conversation and say, what do you really want to allow this person to do? Because when you create those documents, you can say they're not allowed to open any accounts. They're not allowed to withdraw any money, whatever the case may be. No, they can't get into my safe deposit box. So making sure that you're very diligent in understanding what that power of attorney person is allowed to do. Also making sure that the person, you trust them. Make sure that you verify and only appoint someone that you really trust, and make sure they know your wishes and preferences. Make sure they've had a conversation with you, that they haven't, if they select to have Mary Jane be the power of attorney, but you make sure you have those conversations with that loved one to say, hey, what did y'all talk about? What did you allow her to do? So that you can make sure that it is legit and it protects the aging adult in their best interest. Again, avoid appointing someone that mismanages their own money, because if they're mismanaging their own money, then there is no guarantee that they're going to be able to protect your money efficiently. And make sure that you tell friends, family members, and financial advisors about your power of attorney so that they can also look out for you. We've had situations, and I've been in the financial industry 100 years now, but for several years, and we have seen where people will come in and they'll just say, I'm Kim Simon's power of attorney, and she allows me to withdraw. And if, whether they're doing their due diligence or not, they may not pull up that power of attorney document that's on file at the financial institution. So if you have very close relationships with individuals in your banks, with your financial advisors, make sure they know that, hey, Kim has appointed Kelly as their power of attorney, and this is what they're allowed to do. Because it is our job in the financial industry that we protect our elders, our aging customers, and that we look for those kind of red flags so that we can ensure that they are getting taken care of. So please make sure you have those conversations who have you. And the same with your fiduciary relationships, whether it's a guardian or any of those other type relationships, really make sure you understand who those individuals are and what they're allowed to do.
And Cheryl, that's so hard because sometimes, like you said, having somebody be chosen as that POA, and then, we get situations all the time where there might be an individual who is the POA and they come to us because they're like, what can we do? We know that this person is taking advantage of the individual. And it's just so hard and heartbreaking.
It is. And one thing that I will point out, even though you appoint someone as a power of attorney, you can take that away from them just as fast as you can appoint them. So even though that you appoint Mary Jane as their power of attorney, but you don't like the way that they're handling your finances and managing your affairs, you can revoke that power of attorney and find someone else to do it on your behalf. So just because it's not a forever role that they have to play when they're working with you, managing your affairs and managing your finances. Are there any questions so far on anything that we've talked about?
Nothing is coming up in the chat now. I'll let you know if anything.
Okay, perfect. So the next topic we're going to talk about, and this one probably breaks my heart more than anything, is the theft of money or property by family members, caregivers, or in-home helpers. As much as we would like to think that this does not happen and that even our family members are going to protect the best interest of our aging other family members. It doesn't happen that way. So how can you protect yourself? How can you protect other loved ones from being taken advantage of by family members, caregivers, or even in-home helpers? And one of the ways is to secure your private financial documents, including checks, financial statements, and credit cards and statements, considered using a lockbox cabinet. It's very important that if you have someone that's, and for example, I have my mom who is homebound. She has a lady that comes in to her with her twice a week and take care of her, but we don't allow her to open up any of her financial statements, any of her investment paperwork or anything like that. She puts it on a pile. We know what's coming through, and then my sister and I will go in and we will take care of it. But it's very important that you don't allow them to open your mail for them, read their information. Unfortunately, what we have found and what the industry will tell you is that a good majority of the theft of money and property, et cetera, is done by family members, caregivers, and in-home helpers. So this is one of those areas that we really have to do our due diligence. And unfortunately, if Sue was taking care of grandma, but she's also wants to go buy that new pair of jeans, and she knows grandma's got the money in her purse, or she knows where to find grandma's credit card. That is something that happens on a regular basis. And I have had several friends that have told me that their kids have taken advantage of them, even at younger ages, stole their credit cards, taken money out of their wallet. And so it happens. So how do we, once again, mitigate that? Require receipts. If you have someone go buy you something, it is very important that you make sure they bring a receipt back. I know this is once again an example, the caregiver, even for myself, if I go buy medication for my mom or I go buy her groceries, I bring her the receipt so that she can see exactly what I've purchased. My sister can see exactly what I've purchased, and then she can match it up against when she gets her statement. She can say, okay, Sheryl went to Harris Teeter and paid $32. The statement says Sheryl went to Harris Teeter and paid $32 on that day. So it gives them checks and balances for more than just one individual. So it's very important that if you are allowing someone to use your debit card, your credit cards, that you always require receipts. Or even if you give them a $20 bill and say, hey, will you go pick up this prescription for me? Make them bring you back a receipt so that you can see exactly how much it cost and how much change you should get. Again, we talked about monitor bank accounts and telephone bills, which we don't have as much telephone bills anymore these days, but still there could be some of our aging population that still has that home phone, and what kind of phones or phone calls are coming in and out, because that could give you a lot of cues and clues if they're calling people overseas or if they're calling people out of a state that doesn't make sense, doing things that they shouldn't be doing under your pretense. Ask for help from a third party if needed, and consider an automatic bill pay system. That is why we have so many of these bill pays. So many financial institutions, Carter Bank, for example, we have an online bill pay so that those bills can automatically be paid every month, and you don't have to rely on someone else to do them for you. You can set up automatic bill pay for any of your accounts straight on those accounts. If you have a credit card, go online and help your loved ones set up those accounts so that the bill automatically gets paid and you're not relying on someone to write a check or go online each month and pay those bills. That way it's a little bit more structured and a little bit more protected for your loved one. We talked about not letting a hired caregiver or helper open your mail. If you can't do it if they can't do it on their own, make sure that you have a loved one and a backup loved one so that there is that checks and balances that they're opening that mail with your loved one together. I would never recommend opening that mail on their own without them seeing what you're doing, without them being able to talk to you about what that mail looks like. Never promise money or assets to someone when you die in exchange for care provided. That is a big one. Some of these individuals, especially when they don't have a lot of family, they're older, they know they don't, what am I going to do with my assets when I pass away? A lot of individuals unfortunately prey on that. So they'll be like, well, I want to go pay for college and I'll help you if you'll help me with this, or things like that. So just making sure that you don't allow the loved ones promise care in exchange for assets when I die. If they're helping you now, then set up how much are they going to charge you each week, each month to cover that. We talked about never letting caregivers use credit card or debit cards to run errands. If they have to, once again, you bring in the receipts. And then if you have trouble reading a statement, ask your financial institution for a second copy of your statement and go to someone who can read it for you. So making sure that you always have those backup individuals that can help your loved one read those financial statements. So those are just a few examples of things that we can do to help protect ourselves. Unfortunately, this is one of the largest categories that we know of today where most of our aging populations get scammed through their own family members, their caregivers, and their in-home helpers. Does anybody have a story or anything they'd like to share where this has actually happened to them?
I don't I mean, knock on wood. Well, I will tell you, just mine real quick. When the NC Pass came out, it's probably been about 5 months ago. The text alert, and I just happened to have the NC Pass account because my son is down in Charlotte. But for a second, I just thought it looked legitimate, and then for whatever reason, I guess just being in this, I thought, I'm going to go look at my account and just see because I didn't really think that there should have been a balance or that I should have owed anything. And I just went ahead and logged into my NC Pass and saw that the balance was zero. But if I had been distracted or, it could have easily just kind of went in and clicked on the link and you know what I mean? For whatever reason, I had pause that day, which was awesome. But the one I hear a lot just out in the community is the romance and the grandchild scam
Yes,
is
yes.
the ones that, you know what I mean? I hear a lot.
And we'll ask them to talk about those because those are a big one. Really quick, because I know that we have about 15 minutes or so left. This topic could be a whole day seminar.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple ones left here, investment fraud and scams. This is just to be very mindful of who you're working with on your investments, making sure that you're staying up with your investments, making sure that you understand what your investments cover, who is managing your investments. And if you are not comfortable with that individual, make sure that you get the support and the help that you need. Because we've always want to make sure if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. So just making sure that you're reading their monthly investment statements. Does it look right? If you don't understand it, have them get help. And then of course, lottery and sweepstakes scams. Those are big ones because we often hear, I saw this a lot also when I would be out in the branches, an individual would come in and say, I have this check for $5,000 I need to deposit. I won the North Carolina lottery. Oh, that's awesome. Asking those questions. Did you play? Well, no. If you didn't play, it's not going to pay, right? So please make sure that they understand if you're not participating in sweepstakes, you're not playing the lottery, those checks are not real. And unfortunately, if they cash one of those checks and the bank cannot get their money back, they're going to hold that individual accountable and they're going to get their money back through that individual. So really making sure that they understand when they get these winnings in the mail, if they didn't play, it's not a legit check. If they get a phone call saying, hey, you won the lottery, for $10,000, you send me 500, I'll send you the rest. Again, if they didn't go buy a lottery ticket, then they didn't win. And understand no one's ever going to call you a legitimate organization and tell you that you've won this if you know that you haven't participated in something. So have them be very mindful of those type frauds and scams. On the next slide, we have here talking about examples of social engineering, and this is what Kelly alluded to earlier. The grandparent imposter scam, the romance scam. Grandparent scams are bad. I've had two grandparents that have both been victims of grandparent scams. One of them was their grandson called and said, hey, I've been arrested and I need money to get out of jail. Luckily, it was my father-in-law. He kind of found it a little odd. He panicked a little bit, just like you said. You get in the middle of it and you don't know how to think and react. You just want to. And it sounded like the grandson. It sounded like him on the phone. And once they calmed down, they hung up the phone. They called him back. They called his dad back and said, "This individual called. Is this legit?" And it wasn't, of course. Another one, my granddad got a call from their granddaughter saying that they were stuck in Iowa, needed money. Please wire me $500. And he was on the way to the bank to withdraw this money. And what prompted him take a step back and think was she never calls me granddad. She always calls me granddaddy. So he turned around, went home, called, made some phone calls, but he was very close to withdrawing that $5,000. So what we did, I didn't do it. What his daughter did was then go to the bank and partner with their financial institution and say, hey, if he ever comes to try to withdraw this type of money, please reach out to me or my sister before you do that, because the grandchildren would never call him in that manner anyway. So making sure that you partner with your loved ones and your aging adults to say, hey, if you get these phone calls before you do anything, reach out to me. Partner with their financial institutions to say, hey, if they try to come withdraw these large sums of money because they say they've gotten this phone call, please, before you do this, reach out to us so that we can take care of it. Because this is probably a really big one, because they know that their grandparents love their grandchildren, and they're not going to let anything hurt them. So they're quick to react when they get those phone calls. A romance or charity scam. Romance scams are very common these days, and they do prey on those individuals that may be lonely, someone that may have lost somebody. They realize that they can follow their social media, follow that they don't have a lot of contacts, a lot of friends. So this is where you'll look for the warning flags. If you have a loved one that maybe has lost their spouse or someone, and you start seeing they all of a sudden have a new love interest out of the blue. They have a brand new best friend. They're always going out to eat, and they're always paying for that friend. They're always paying for that loved one or that individual that they've met. Be very mindful of that and understand that that could be a potential romance scam, because some of the warning flags are that you will see that they become the individual that's, if you're with them and they're very complimentary and flirtatious and very flirty with them, individuals, when they need that attention, they thrive on that. And they're building that trust and that relationship with that person. They can then say, well, hey, let's go to Europe. And then they'll say, I don't really have the money, but I would love to see Europe with you. Can you pay? And if they need a travel companion, they're going to pay it, right? They do shower them with attention. They want you to keep your relationship a secret. If your loved one has a new friend or a new person, love interest, or just a friend in general, but they're not telling you anything about it, they're keeping it a secret, that's a warning flag that you may need to dig a little deeper. And then,
Cheryl,
yeah.
Melissa had commented that she has her cousin's mother-in-law lost $150,000 that way.
Oh,
Hmm.
oh my goodness. How did they finally realize that this person was not legit?
Let's see what um, she said. Not yet. They're trying to get it back. And these are just so heartbreaking
They are,
because the numbers are, this isn't $500,
right.
$1,000. These are huge investment, life savings for these individuals.
And unfortunately, these individuals are looking for that companionship because they are lonely. Where, when we're in our generations and like that, we're out busy, we're out going doing things. Once they get to a certain age and they're sitting at home a lot, they don't have a lot of interactions because their children, their grandchildren are busy, they're leading their own lives. Romance scammers prey on this. They can, like I said, so many aging adults have social media, and they don't know how to protect their social media accounts by blocking it, not letting everybody see everything that they're posting. So scammers can go out there and see that, oh, this person only has 100 friends and they don't really ever do anything. And so they can start preying on that person and reaching out to them and showing them attention and things like that. And then they can start very small by saying, oh, hey, can you, I need to fill my car up with gas so I can come see you this weekend. Can you give me some money to fill up my gas tank? And things like that. So it's very important that we pay close attention to what does your loved one's social media look like? Like I said, my neighbor across the street, he is 86 years old, bless him. He has a Facebook page. So, and his family monitors, we're friends with him on Facebook so that we can see what are people posting on his account just to make sure that they aren't preying on him like that. So make sure, kind of like our children when they were younger, monitor their social media accounts and see what individuals are saying on their accounts, what they're posting on their accounts to protect them.
Yeah, Cheryl, she said that it was the jail scam.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
That is heartbreaking because we don't want to hear
Mm.
that actually happened to my husband and I personally. Our daughter lived down in Brunswick, Georgia, and we got a call at 3 a.m. saying that she was in jail. We need the money immediately. Well, of course, I'm panicking because it's 3 a.m., right? And so you don't think properly. And my husband beside of me said, telling me, hang up, we'll call back. And that's what we did. We hung up the phone, called back to the sheriff's department or whatever, and it wasn't legit. But if I had not had if my husband hadn't told me to stop, and don't panic, we could have sent that money to
Yeah.
some. Those are probably very scary, one of the scariest. And then, of course, charity scams. Be very mindful. People are always asking for donations. It is my recommendation, and again, my recommendation, if someone calls you and asks you to donate to the police fund, the fire fund, or the Veterans Affair, I would not do it at that point of contact. Encourage them just to take their information, take their phone number, and let them know that you will call them back when you're ready to donate to those particular charities. Because when you listen to those phone calls, they are very good at preying on your senses, right? And they're very good at tugging at your heartstrings, and then you're giving, $300 or whatever the case may be, and it's not a legit organization. And they do this everywhere. My daughter is down in Charlotte, UNC Charlotte. She was going into the student union, and there was a table outside, and someone asked her to donate. And they said, this is for childhood cancer. Will you donate? Well, she didn't know. She panicked a little bit because she had a cancer. So she was able to think about herself. So she donated $15 by using my credit card. So she gave up my credit card information to donate $15. And then she called me and she was like, "Oh gosh, Mom, I don't know if this was legit or not." So fortunately for her, we did some research and it was legit. But in that instance, I canceled the credit card immediately and told them if there was a potential fraud so that they could not get access to any more of that information. But it is everywhere at all ages. So just be very mindful of that. And then, of course, we look at tax and debt collection scams. Tax collectors, debt collectors are going to call you and say, if you don't pay this within the next 24 hours, we're going to send you to jail. Be mindful of those because pretty much most of those are scams and it's not going to happen to you. So it's important that we look at those, we talk about them, and just really, the IRS will tell you they're never going to call you over the phone and demand money right then and there. So just making sure that any phone calls that they get, not to panic and just talk to somebody about that. Call back to those individuals, call the IRS back, go on their website, email them before you do anything. And then of course, telemarketer and mail offers and stuff, same thing. Telemarketers are still hot and heavy these days, and now they've learned how to call you on your cell phone. Your mobile phone used to be safe and they only called you on their landlines, but now they've gotten hold of your mobile phone numbers. IRS will never call you and tell you that either send me a check right now or give me your debit card or you're going to go to jail. So if you get those phone calls, just reach out to the IRS, go to their website. Salesperson scams, etc., mail offer, making sure that you understand that these organizations and these companies will not just ask for your money over your phone and call you directly demanding that money. And
Another
so,
one that happened to me, Cheryl, I wanted to uh,
yeah,
just
please.
stick a pin here. So I was at DMV a couple of months ago, and before going to the DMV, I got a text message, presumably from the driver's license organization, that if they were alluding to some ticket I've had, and if I don't click this link and pay it, that my license could be suspended, and just it was a fear mongering, you know.
Right.
Um, and so I was in the motor vehicle plate renewal place, and I contemplated asking the representative about this text message, but then again, something said to me, go and Google it. And when I Googled it, it turns out that it is a scam. So just be very, very cautious that even if you have something going on with your driver's license between you and DMV, DMV will not send you a text.
And that's a great point, Kim. One of the things that I have learned over time, if you think it's a scam, it probably is a scam, but you can also go out and Google it and they will tell you that yes, that's a scam and it's very prominent going on right now. Also paying attention to the news media. When there's a big scam going across the country, they will let everybody know, hey, if you get this, don't react to it. IRS will tell you, that be very mindful that if they're not going to call you and demand money. They're not going to call you and say, hey, you're entitled to a big refund, but you first have to pay this type thing. The IRS, they'll just send you a certified letter. Probably they're going to take your money, but they're not going to call you. So just being very mindful of those type phone calls. And once again, the scammers are very good at understanding what the life situation is for most individuals when they're making those phone calls, and they know who to prey on and who to target. So, they read the obituaries, they look at what's online about what's changed in individuals' lives. So just being very mindful of those type things is extremely important.
And we have another individual, Rosalind, said she received that same text. And as we're wrapping up, I have a business individual that I know the person, the Duke Energy,
Yep.
to the tune of $5,000, and they paid with the Walmart gift cards.
Yeah.
It it can just really happen to anyone.
Right. It is a scary, scary environment we have out there.
Hmm.
Quickly, as we go through a few of these more, we've talked a lot about computer scams, telephone scams, internet, identity theft. One thing that I do want to touch on very quickly is the reverse mortgage fraud. In some cases, a reverse mortgage may be good for an aging adult, but it's very important that you really truly work with your financial institutions, understanding what a reverse mortgage is and how it can or cannot impact you in the end. Because pretty much what a reverse mortgage is, it is legit, but what it can do is a special type of loan that allows homeowners at age 62 and older to borrow against the equity of their home. And the bank is giving them the money to use, right? And so and the more money they receive, the less equity they have in their home. And it just becomes a vicious cycle that may then hinder them in the end. So it's very important that you talk to your financial advisor, your financial institutions before you move into a reverse mortgage fraud or reverse mortgage. We've also talked a lot about contractor fraud and making sure the people that's working on your homes are legit. Do they have a license? Do you know them? Did you get a referral from them, etc.? One of the things, we have a poll. Kelly, do we have time for a poll?
We got 1 minute, and I pray that it will work.
Well, and as she's going through this, what is the purpose of this is just to talk about understanding what is medical fraud. Medical fraud is becoming more and more prevalent these days. And what is the purpose of medical fraud? They use it to get this through a Medicare fraud, get the information from somebody. And what it does is that way they can go and get the medical information, their ID numbers, and they can go to the doctor. They're buying prescriptions and things like that. And it's using someone else's identity to take care of their medical needs. So they steal your personal, they want medical treatment, prescription drugs, surgery, or other services, and then you could end up being accountable. So it's extremely important that you protect your medical information as well, because now people are starting to prey on that. So who are our abusers? We talked about that a lot as we've gone through the afternoon. Family members, caregivers, friends, neighbors, acquaintances, agents under a power of attorney, financial advisors, anybody can be your abusers. So making sure that you really know these individuals, you understand who they are, you understand their credentials and what they are there to help you do. And making sure that you always have that second eye on anybody that you are working with and that is helping to take care of you or your loved ones. Strangers, we talked a lot about this. Anybody out there in the world can be an abuser. And like I said, they're getting more and more savvy every single day. And it's getting harder and harder for the general population to keep up with all the scams that are going on. So making sure that you have those partnerships and those trusted individuals that can help you through those. And then why don't adults report it? Shame, they're loyal to the family, fear of retaliation, dependence on that abuser, denial, self-blame, or lack of awareness. We find that a lot of aging adults don't report it because they are embarrassed and they don't want to feel like they're losing their independence. So we have to reiterate that just because they are reporting these exploitations does not make them a lesser individual, and that anything bad will happen to them and they still have lost their independence. We are just here to help.
Thank you.
Welcome.
And I am so sorry. Like you said, Cheryl, this is a topic that is literally a day's worth.
Yes.
I just want to thank you, Cheryl Hancock from Carter Bank, Kim Simon from Carter Bank. Thank you for being with us today and just bringing such good information. And again, the presentation will be sent out to each individual.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time and I've enjoyed being with you guys today. Hope to see you again soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye-bye.